And this always surprises me. Why can't any American politician criticize Israel in any way?
You consider yourself anti-Semitic?
Hell no.
You do not?
I'm a Semite.
You're a Semite yourself?
Of Arab background.
Well, I know you're Lebanese background, right? But you're not Jewish.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, no, you say you're... I'm just trying to clarify.
They're not Semites. I mean, most of them are from Europe.
The Jews?
Yes.
Well, okay. The question was, any comments on Israel? That's what the question was. And you said, tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
Right.
And then the rabbi who was interviewing you said, any better comments? And you said, remember, these people are occupied and it's their land, not Germany's, not Poland. So where should they go, he said. What should they do? And you said,
Why
go
do they
home.
have to go anywhere? They aren't being persecuted. They don't have the right to take other people's land. Under international law, occupied land should not be annexed.
Well, you got a lot of criticism for it. How did you deal with all of that criticism?
We have organized lobbyists in favor of Israel. You can't open your mouth. I can call the President of the United States anything in the book, but if you say one thing about Israel and you're off limits.
Well, that's what happened to you. So you have no regrets about what you said, even though they...
I have regrets that everybody's misinterpreted it and distorted it. And you have the Ari Fleischer and Abe Foxman distorting everything. So I certainly knew that, and I should have kept my mouth shut, probably.
But you still don't feel that it was insensitive in any way?
No.
No.
I'm sensitive about the Palestinians being pushed around, knocked on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get out of this house in 24 hours. 3 generations in refugee camps.
Okay.
Pushed from their homes.
Why is everybody afraid to whisper what's going on? Listen to the strong statement I use on your show, even though it has labeled me and hurt me politically. Israel has a stranglehold in the United States of America. They have us in foreign wars we shouldn't be involved with that have bankrupted us, and they've gone so far as having Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon making a statement on Israeli radio October 3, 2001, the following: "We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it." And no one read that in a newspaper in this country. No one knows about it.
Now, just a few hours ago here in Washington, this was the scene in a packed U.S. House chamber on Capitol Hill. Take a look.
May God forever bless the United States of America.
That's right. President Barack Obama, the leader of the United States of America, addressed the... Wait a minute. That's not Obama. That's the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, I'm sorry, all of that wild applause must have really thrown me off track. So let's try this whole thing again. The Israeli Prime Minister's speech today had all of the trappings of a State of the Union address by an American president with soaring approval ratings. In fact, Netanyahu got 29 standing ovations from lawmakers, compared with just 25 that President Obama got during his January speech to Congress. Now, some critics are actually warning that this is an indication of something more than just congressional support for Israel. Some go as far as to say that the Israeli Prime Minister, in fact, wields more influence over the U.S. Congress than America's president. Now, one such critic is a former Alaska senator, and he actually ran for a presidential office in 2008. His name is Mike Gravel, and I spoke with him earlier about this issue. Take a look at what he had to say.
On this particular subject, there's no question Netanyahu is more powerful than the president because the Congress is sold out to AIPAC. And so they play either the executive off against the Congress or vice versa. But right now, the Congress is impotent in terms of Middle Eastern foreign policy.
Has America's foreign policy towards Israel actually changed?
It hasn't changed at all, and his speech lacked content. It was just more of the same Obama type of stuff. The embarrassment was, of course, that Netanyahu comes to town and upbraids the president and tells him that what he's suggesting is not going to happen. But that's to be expected from Netanyahu, believe me.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, Netanyahu doesn't want any peace. He never has. He's never been characterized as peace. He and Sharon are cut from the same spool of cloth. What they want to do is they're prepared to go ahead and over time push out the Palestinians from the West Bank and from Jerusalem. That's their plan. If it takes 1,000 years, that's their plan. That's what they're going to do.
So you think that Netanyahu is genuinely not committed to any sort of peaceful solution to this issue, and that as long as he's in power, the status quo will remain?
Totally. And I really want to not equivocate on that. Netanyahu is a product of his culture, which is a bunker-type mentality that you hunker down and use any excuse to push out the Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza.
Why is it that so many lawmakers on the Hill are reluctant to ask the difficult questions that need to be asked when it comes to U.S.-Israeli foreign policy?
The reaction you see is the groveling, and that's the word, groveling, to the interest of AIPAC by members of Congress. And with respect to the 67 borders, that's a given. That has been a given in international law and in international beliefs since 1967.
We value free speech and open debate here in this country, and yet it seems like when it comes to the question of Israel, it's one of those sacred things that if you're a lawmaker and, God forbid, you speak out, you say something that sort of doesn't toe the accepted line, that's almost political suicide. What is it that has made Israel such a critical issue for our politicians?
It is political suicide, and it's political suicide because the Jewish community, primarily AIPAC, musters whatever monies are needed to defeat anybody who doesn't toe the line or raises their head in opposition, or to turn around and support anybody who will unilaterally support the interest of Israel over those of the United States of America. It's unpatriotic. I mean, our American interests should be first and foremost. That's not the case for the Middle East. It certainly is not the case for Israel. And that's shameful. That's a shameful chapter in American history.
But is that really what you think, that AIPAC, a lobbying group, is really sort of the fear that's behind this? Is it that simple, that it's political donations and money?
It is that simple, and all you have to do is look at the record. If somebody stands up in Congress opposed to Israel, you see the wealth of the nation from the Jewish community focus on that person's defeat. Mm-hmm. So politicians are more interested in having a job than in doing what's right. And so if they want to keep their job, then they've got to keep themselves clean on the Israeli issue and respond to AIPAC's demands for their support. The Congress and the President of the United States are moral cowards when it comes to the justice that should be brought about of the interest between Palestine and Israel.
Now, Philip Giraldi is a former CIA officer joining me on the line from Washington. Many thanks for being with us. Well, the U.S. is launching its largest ever campaign to spy on civilians, which involves more than 4,000 agencies. What would remain of U.S. citizens' privacy?
Well, very little. This has been going on ever since 2001, and some might argue even before that. And what is happening is that these agencies at state level and local level are collecting huge amounts of information on every citizen. There are state agencies that are Homeland Security agencies that collect information independently. This even happens at county levels in the United States, where information about people and what they do and what their activities are is collected.
And some experts are saying that this new program would give more room for Israeli intelligence agencies to work in the United States, as intelligence sharing is a major part of this new program. Your thoughts, please, in this post-WikiLeaks world?
Well, actually, it's worse than that. It's worse than you're implying. What is happening is that many of these state agencies are actually Israeli companies that are working for the states. This happened recently in Pennsylvania, where it was an Israeli company that was collecting this kind of information on war protesters. And in the state of New Jersey, an Israeli was actually appointed as the Homeland Security Director for the state. So this penetration of American security by Israeli companies and Israeli individuals has been going on for some years.
Let me take you back to the Washington Post report once again. It says that the U.S. is importing techniques that have been applied in Iraq and Afghanistan to spy on Americans. Are we going to look at harsh methods, perhaps, being used against Americans?
Well, I don't see that yet taking place, but I think the danger here is that you have a right to privacy as a citizen in the United States or as a citizen in any country. And the fact is that the government has no right, when you have done nothing wrong, to be collecting information on you and compiling this information into a dossier. I think this is the real danger, because once you have that kind of information collected, you can do anything you want with it. You can intimidate people. You can say, well, you know, you're in debt because of your credit cards. You're doing this. You know, there are lots of ways the government can use this information to leverage this information to do things to private citizens that should not be done.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughts. Philip Giraldi, a former CIA officer, speaking with us on the line from Washington.
We have a simple lawsuit in Washington that has everyone terrified. A former employee of AIPAC, who was the director of the RAND Corporation, if you know who they are, who sat on the National Security Council, Steve Rosen. Steve Rosen is suing AIPAC because they fired him because he was convicted of spying for Israel. Now, Rosen managed, and here's what Rosen's contention is, mind you. How can you fire me for spying against the U.S. when AIPAC doesn't do anything but spy against the U.S.? That's his defense, $20 million defense, and you know what? Steve Rosen is winning his lawsuit.
Former CIA counterterrorism officer Philip Giraldi is on a mission. He says he wants to expose how costly and dangerous Israeli espionage is to the United States.
Israel steals technology, steals secrets from the United States.
Giraldi is the executive director of the Council for the National Interest Foundation, which just released a 12-page overview written by Giraldi called The Spy Who Loves Us. He says Israel conducts more espionage against America than any other U.S. ally.
It should almost be seen like an act of war.
Giraldi says Israel profits from selling U.S. technology.
It gets really serious when Israel uses these technologies and sells them to countries that are not friendly to the United States. I would cite the example of a Chinese jet, the J-10, which was built with a lot of technology that came originally from the United States.
Giraldi says Israeli spying has bankrupted some American companies.
I'll get phone calls from people actually who worked for companies that went out of business because Israel had stolen their technology and done that sort of thing, and the company goes bankrupt.
According to his report, virtually all U.S. government bodies, including the FBI and General Accountability Office, have confirmed that Israeli espionage takes place, and while collecting intelligence is part of the function of government, Israel crosses the line. Giraldi says the intensity and persistency of Israel's spying is particularly disturbing, considering how dependent Israel is on America's political and military support.
Well, it will only change when the politics change, and the politics have to change in a way that the United States, for one reason or another, begins to see Israel just like we see every other country, Italy, Germany, France, and treat them the same way. But as long as Israel has a special relationship, which is backed up by Congress and backed up by the media, it won't change.
American Jews were always, and you can't use this term liberal or left or anything, progressive, humanist, people that gave a damn about other people. It's the background. And this new Reagan-era blind greed, run America into the ground through borrowed money, create oligarchies. We don't care if children starve. As long as we get photo opportunities and play these childish games we do. Jews were always too smart for this, and I'm just not seeing it anymore. When did America's Jews, who are our smartest people, become among our dumbest people? This idea of supporting AIPAC, which is a foreign conspiracy, clearly a conspiracy against the United States. AIPAC has one purpose alone, to destroy the United States. They're not doing anything else. There is no more anti-American group on this earth than AIPAC. North Korea loves us in comparison to AIPAC. And, of course, Netanyahu has now finally made this clear to everybody.
I think one of the main components of this is the fact that very few people really understand the nature of the problem. And I think that your article here basically lays out the problem, which is that when you have people who try to make this claim that they are loyal to America and at the same time loyal to a foreign government, it is a lie.